week vlog. So I figured that I would start off pretty much exactly where I left off last week's vlog, as I have nothing to read, so we're gonna start. It is actually Saturday, but I have finished all of my reads for the week, so I thought I would start a new weekly vlog and a new roll. So this is what I ended up rolling. Roll number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Most recent purchase, which is most recent purchase. So I am going to be going straight in with my next book in the Kate Johnson series, and I am going to be starting Hex and the City, which is the next book in her witchy kind of books. This one is about Poppy, who is a young girl from a relatively religious upbringing. She has now moved in with a elder witch, and this witch is teaching her how to connect with her powers, etc. It's going to be a romance. I'm very excited. They're just really fun, like head empty good time books, which I'm really excited for. So I'm hoping that this week then we'll get on with reading some of my more necessary reads as well. I do really need to get into Lycanius. I really need to read the next Temeraire book. I could also very much do with reading a book that I've borrowed off a friend. So I have a few that I kind of need to prioritize, but we'll see how the dice dictate on that score. But if not, I'll just have to take the last week off of using the Bookopoly board and just read obligation reads. We'll see how it goes. Hey Bookaholics, it is Sunday, so I thought I would check in because I have actually been making quite a bit of progress. I am a decent ways into Hex and the City, and so far I'm liking this one more. I think because we have the older mentor trope, which I really vibe with. Literally the opening was by the way, I targeted this ad so that only witches could see it, so that then I would only have to share my house with a witch, because we're following Poppy, who has just moved in. She's now renting a room off of this elder witch, and this is how she discovers that she's a witch, because it's literally just this woman being by the way, you're a witch because you saw my ad and only witches can see my ad. And it's the whole opening conversation of explaining what witches are and how to find your affinity. And then we have our protagonist who's on why can't I ride a broom around? Well, it's not very practical in the middle of London. Maybe when you go to Essex and stuff. It's so funny. And then it's she's bisexual, and then the old lady is literally just yeah, the best people are, and it's just fabulous. And I really loved that opening gambit, and then from then I just kind of hit the ground running. So I'm definitely having a better time with this one, and I'm having a lot more fun, and I'm really glad that I jumped right into this one, because still on my menses, they tend to last what feels like all of eternity. So I am just loving having something fun, and my brain can just relax and I can be goo. However, I do feel at this point with 2 easy books in a row, I could potentially do with something a bit more intense. So I have decided that I'm going to do another roll, and then hopefully I can get a physical book on my TBR and alternate the 2. So here's how my next roll goes. Roll number 5. 9. A chance card. Blood of Tyrants by Naomi Novik. For my other roll, I got chance card, so therefore no control over my reading, but it is a physical read, so at least there's that. And in my chance cards, basically I put some books that are obligation reads, ones that I need to get through, ones that I need to prioritize this month for whatever reason, coupled with some seasonal ones that is just oh, I'll read in October because they're very October vibe. And I ended up getting one of my obligation reads, and I've got The Blood of Tyrant, which is book 8 in the Temeraire series. I'm nearly done with the Temeraire. Oh my god, it's been such a weird one, because the Discord is dying down a little bit. A lot of people kind of over the summer started to sort of fall behind on the reading schedule, and I can't go like 2 whole months in between reading books in a series. I just can't do it. Like, I understand people that do, but like that's why I can never join Catch Up Book Club. Most of the time it's because I've already read the series that they're reading, to be fair. But like the same this time. But another reason is that I would just like end up way ahead of schedule really early, because like 1 book a month is killing me, especially when they're like this dinky. Like, it's not even 500 pages, which I appreciate in most genres is very long, but in fantasy it's a perfectly normal length. 434 pages. Like, it's a very dinky book, and these are the chunkier ones. The last 2 are the chunky ones. So like reading 1 a month is already like quite a slow pace for me, who normally binge read series. So doing more months in between, I just kind of lose momentum. So I am going to just keep continuing, and then, you know, I will read through everyone's thoughts as and when they get to them, and I'll still join in and stuff. But the live shows kind of stopped happening when Eleanor got sick, and I'm really, really sad about that, because I loved doing the live shows with her. I loved hearing her thoughts on it so much, because she's just someone whose brain I love so much. But then on top of that, like after the live show, we'd also have like a chat, and it would be like our catch up time, and like I don't get that anymore. So like I really miss her. But I completely understand that she's been unwell, and now she's trying to like catch up on everything. So I get it, but then no live shows either. So this is like a read along that I'm just doing kind of by myself now at this point, but it's okay because I am enjoying the books. And aside from the little dip that we had at book 6, I have been having a really good time with this series. So this series, for anyone who is new to the channel, is the Napoleonic Wars, but with dragons. In the first book, we are following Captain Will Lawrence, who is a captain in the English Navy, and they take over a French vessel, and then when they do, they realize that amongst their cargo is a dragon egg. And dragon eggs are a very valuable resource, because obviously dragons are imperative to the war effort, and the more dragons that you have, the more helpful it will be for the country. So when they discover this egg and it is on the brink of hatching, and they are definitely too far away from British shores to be able to get it to the Dragon Corps, they decide instead that they're going to, one of the crew are going to have to take the hit and become its new rider. So when the dragon ends up choosing Will, he must set aside the life he knows to become the constant companion to the fighting dragon Temporary. I can't believe that's where we started, in a way. Like, it feels like it was so long ago. Like, we started this series in March, and it's now October, and we're nearly done. We're finishing in November, and I can't believe it. I have had such a wonderful time with this series, and I love historical fiction, so I'm very excited to see where the last 2 take us, especially, like I said, because they are the chunkier ones for this series. So just to see how it all wraps up, I'm very excited, because I don't know, each book has kind of had almost like a self-contained plot, so I'm very curious if that will persist and it will just be like an episodic series, or if the last 2 will kind of bring it all together. I'm fairly certain that this one is set in Japan and Russia, which is very exciting. So we've been all over the world with these books. We've been obviously to England and France, but then we've also been to China. We have been to Australia, we've been to South America, we've been to Africa, and now we are going to Japan and Russia. So we'll see how I fare with this one, and yeah, reading these 2 alongside each other is going to be a very interesting experience. Hey vlog, so it is Monday and it's time for me to check in. So I have been doing some reading. I am almost done with Hex Appeal. I've got to be on like 70% at this point. It's flying by. I've been reading it for like 3 days, and it's just really fun to just kind of like drift in and out of. Basically, I just read it on my phone and I flow through it, and it's fun. So I'm not going to talk about it now. I'll talk about it again when I'm done, because it's a romance, so there's like a limit to the amount I can say. Hopefully I'll be done with it by tomorrow, and then I can actually like check in and talk to you about it and be like, this is how this book went. Because again, with romances, like outside of tropes, there's not a huge amount that can be said in my experience. So I am going to move on to the other one that I've been reading, which is The Blood of Tyrants, and I am now on chapter 5, which puts me on page 89. And obviously there's a limit to the amount I could talk about this one because it's the 8th book in a series. But we do have a new setting. I am struggling with this one again. There is a trope at the beginning of this I really despise. Essentially, it's a trope that just is used a lot in fantasy, and it's my pet peeve. It's a trope that I hate the most of like any trope ever. I'm struggling. I'm really struggling with this one. I am really hoping that they overcome it quickly, and I think that it will be well executed because I know that Naomi Novik does have a good grasp on how to tackle especially tropes that have a huge emotional impact, and I think that she is doing this to play on emotion. But oh my god, I cannot stand this trope, so it's just frustrating the heck out of me. So I'm hoping we overcome it with relative ease, but so far obviously in the first stretch it's just not a fun time. So we'll see, but I can't see this one rating very high if this thing persists very far into the book. However, putting it down for a second, I do also want to show you a bookmark that my friend has made me. I lent her a couple of my books and she, in exchange, made this for me. How beautiful is this? Look, she's reading. And then, where is he? There's a snail. He's very cute. We'll pick it up. And then we've got a purple dragon. I love it so much. It's absolutely stunning. Got this on the back, and she does actually have a shop. I'll show you something else of hers. This wasn't a present. This is something my mum bought me for Christmas from her shop. But her and her husband have this shop where they do like boxes. They also do taffel, have taffel. I can't remember what the full name of it is, but it's like Viking chests. They have sets of that. They have mugs. They have altars, and they have boxes. I've got a Baba Yaga one. It's where I keep all of my bookish stickers, and they're lovely quality, gorgeous designs. I need to get more stuff from the shop, but I thought I'd shout her out and I'd leave a link. She doesn't actually sell the bookmarks as far as I'm aware on her website, so that's just exclusively for me, but the boxes are on her website, so I thought I'd give her a shout out. Now, because I am nearly done with Hex Appeal, and because I am procrastinating on Blood of Tyrants, I thought instead of completely losing momentum, I'll do another roll now, so that then when I finish Hex Appeal, I've got something to look forward to push me through this one, which is depressing that I need it, but alas, here we are. So let's go get to rolling. Roll number 6. 11. Blood. Now, my last roll has come out as blood, which means that it needs to have a red cover. I am going to be going with The Anatomy of Fear for this one, which is an anthology by a load of self-pub authors. Some that I've read from before and really loved, some that I'm really excited to try. It's got L.R. McRae, who is one of my favourite people on the internet, but also a wonderful self-pub author. H.L. Tinsley's in there. Crystal Matar, I think, has one in there as well. So just loads of authors that I really need to read more from anyway. And the premise of this one is that they basically each took a different like body part and wrote a story around it, hence why it's called The Anatomy of Fear, which I just think is a very cool premise. And yeah, it's just a load of short stories by these authors. So I'm very excited to get into this. However, this not really worked out the way I wanted it to, because there's 12 short stories. So I will most likely just read one a day. because I think I'll process that better. So for now, I will read my one a day of the short stories, and then I will continue with this. And if I feel like I'm dipping, potentially throw another book in the mix. But that will all factor in once I have finished Hex Appeal, which hopefully I can get back to you on tomorrow. Hey vlog, it is Tuesday, so it's time to check in again. I have in fact finished Hex in the City, which in the last clip, I literally kept calling Hex Appeal, which is the first book, not the second book. I had a really good time with it. It's one of those that it's like, is it a good book? I don't know, but was it a fun time? Yes. Did it do everything I wanted it to do? Also yes. So in this one, we are following Poppy, who is basically the kind of person that gets to go on like the first couple dates and then it never goes any further. And she just constantly keeps like not actually being able to get into a relationship. So when she goes on a date and things go wrong, she ends up being angry and she goes back to the spell shop where she works and just hexes an item to kind of get it out of her system. And then the next day, because she was drunk, she forgot all about it. And then the next day, one of her roommates who is working in the shop sells the item to a guy who has bought it for his co-worker because they had a one-night stand, and things need kind of like start to get out of hand, and Poppy and her roommates, her coven, need to go find this pendant before it's too late. Axel, who is the guy who bought it, is kind of obviously the primary love interest, and we have like two people who are insecure and who are trying to find love, and they kind of need to work together. So it's kind of like that forced proximity in a way, like they need to work together to find this pendant. And yeah, it's a fun one. I had a fun time with it. I had fun, like I thought the roommates were really cool. I thought the older lady was really cool. I thought that like the spell shop was cool. The relationship was cute and everything was just fun, and everyone was, again, like in the first one, Hallmark movie level quirky. It's kind of gross and sickly, the amount of like cutesiness that they have. And like the goofiness that they have, and she's like overly chaotic. Everyone in it is kind of like something straight out of New Girl, but I had fun with it, and it did what it said on the tin. Now, do I think this is a masterpiece of literature? Not at all, but I had a fun time, and that's why I'm reading these kinds of romance. I think I'm gonna jump off of that train for a little bit and try and get into some of the like more me reads, but I have not made a huge amount of progress in Blood of Tyrants. I've read like 2 more chapters, so I'm now on page 128. So you can tell how slow I am taking this book. It's really infuriating me. There was, at the end of the chapter that I just finished, well, that I finished earlier this morning, there was a section that kind of, like the last paragraph is a callback to all the way back in book 2, which is cool, but just this trope is killing me. It's absolutely killing me. And also there's like a narrative device to like separate 2 characters that I'm also finding really frustrating. So this book is just, at the minute, is frustrating me and angering me, and that's all I am getting. So we'll see how I feel once maybe things start to be a bit less just needlessly annoying. I have also read the first 2 short stories in the Anatomy of Fear. So the first one that I read is Blood by Trudy Skies, but I've not actually read anything by them before, and I definitely want to now. I really liked their story, and it's very kind of like horror gothic mixed with fantasy in a way that I really, really liked. And then the second one is Ears by Tim Hardy, and Tim Hardy is an author that I have been told I need to try. I am going to be trying his works for a vlog in either November or December, but it was a good taste test for his writing, and I'm very excited to read more by this author. So far, so good. I have had a good start with those. So Hex in the City, good. Blood of Tyrants, not so good. And then Anatomy of Fear is going well so far. Hey vlog, it's Wednesday, so I thought I would come and check in. I have new bedding. I'm sure you saw me setting it up, and it feels really nice, and it's like a bit more autumnal to get ready for the autumn season. I can pretend it's autumn. It's still rather warm here. It has been raining and now it's gotten hot again, which is annoying. I don't want to have a hot Halloween. I'm in the wrong country. I am checking in because I have read another one of the short stories. I feel like I'm not going to check in every day with the short stories. I'm enjoying them, but they're so short with the anthology that I don't think that there's any point in me checking in every day. So I'm like, maybe every 2 to 3 days I'll check in and be like, these are the ones that I've read. I have continued with the Blood of Tyrants. It's downstairs. I can't be bothered to go get it, but I am still struggling with it. It's still slow. It's still doing things I don't want it to do. I am hoping still that there will be an improvement on the situation soon. The chapters are actually quite long as well, and they're about the same as they always are, but I've never noticed the length before. But with this one, I'm really feeling the length of the chapters. So I think I've read maybe 2 more chapters. But I have decided to roll again. I need another book on the go, and the short story a day format is not scratching the itch of I need something else to read that isn't Blood of Tyrants. So I've decided to roll again, and this is what I got. Roll number 7. 10 again. Mood read. I got mood read, which is great, but there are quite a few things that I need to read. So I thought, well, instead of one of my like actual obligation reads, because then that's not a mood read, that's me strategically placing a book. I have decided that I'm going to give this a go, which is Clara y la Penumbra, which is Clara and like the dusk. We'll go with that, by Jose Carlos Somoza, who is I don't know where he's from actually. He's from Havana but is living in Spain, and the book is in Spanish, and it's a kind of mystery but with a supernatural element to it, in which we have, in 2006, human beings have been exhibited in museums. And it seems to be a bit of a dark academia that discusses the difference between art and the person that lies beneath. I don't know a huge amount more about it, and I don't really want to know much going in. So I'm just going to kind of go in blind and trust my friend that this is going to be a good time. So yeah, I'm going to start this, and I'll alternate this with the Blood of Tyrants and see which one I end up finishing first, because this one's not short. This one is 554 pages. So if I manage to finish this one before Blood of Tyrants, I'm in trouble. Hey vlog, it is Thursday and it's time to check in. Some events have unfolded where I have not made any progress. I've read like 30 pages in Clara y la Penumbra, so I have nothing to say on this so far, apart from that the writing style is very atmospheric. It was very uncomfortable to begin with because we're describing a statue of a teenage girl, and the whole purpose of the statue, like as an artistic piece, is that it's discussing the like loss of innocence, and the way that the statue was described was really icky for that to be the opening of a book. But I pushed through, and it's clear that it's supposed to be commentary, but what made it really icky is that the humans are art pieces. Like, you have people who are like performing as statues. So you have someone who is objectifying this young woman. Like, granted, she is an adult, she's not actually a teenager, but objectifying this young woman, and the descriptions are of a human being, not of a statue. But of course, that's kind of also the point. So it's very conflicting. But that's all I've gotten to so far, is basically just the opening, which was interesting. We have these art pieces, and then you have a girl that's one of the art pieces girls, the performers, has gone missing and then turns up dead. And that's basically all we have so far. The reason that I have not made much progress in that is actually because this morning while we were out, we needed to go get our car checked over. So while we were out, sorry if the camera angle has shifted, I literally just had to go downstairs for a moment. However, while we were out, I was just sitting around doing nothing while we were waiting for our car, and I managed to read a whole heckin' chunk of Blood of Tyrants. Basically, and I've checked other reviewers to see if it's not just a me thing. Most of the Tamara books are in parts. So this one is in 3 parts, and part 1 is a dumpster fire. It's so shit. And it's such a shame because it's set in Japan, so it should have like awesome atmosphere, some really interesting history going on, and all we're focusing on is Will, something that he's going through, and it's a really shit time. When I last left you, I was 1 chapter into part 2. And I was like, oh my god, we're still in part 2 and we still have problems with this thing, with this trope that I'm not liking. Like there was a part of me that had been hoping that part 1 would be where this thing is resolved, where this like trope that I dislike would be resolved and we could move on to something else. Because we have a change in setting, and in part 2 we're in China, and we haven't been in China since book 2, and book 2 had really interesting developments in China, so we get to see some of these characters again. And with everything that was going on with Will, I thought, oh, China is going to be where this is going to get resolved. And obviously I can't tell you exactly why I thought that, but because there'll be characters that he would know, some of these problems could get resolved. And then I read the first chapter into part 2, which is quite a chunky chapter, and it still hadn't resolved. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake. So that's why I was getting really peeved, and that's why in the last one I was really annoyed. However, 1 chapter later, if I'd have pushed through for 1 more chapter, I would have become more engaged again with the book. Now, the problem still somewhat persists, and it's going to, I imagine, for this whole book, because it's not just disappearing, which I think for people who like this trope, they'd be frustrated if it just disappeared, but it's easing, and the effect that I was worried it would have is milder than I thought it would. It's still there and it still irks me, but it's milder. But the plot, the way it's going now, is worth pushing through for. So even though there is still this like lingering thing in the background, so many more things have started happening, and we've got loads of callbacks to characters from previous books that we're seeing, and we're seeing some of the dragons from past books, and it's been a much better time. So then I absolutely flew through part 2, and I am now at part 3. So I am hoping that tomorrow I'll be able to finish this one. I am hoping to read a little tiny bit more of Glada y la Penumbra this evening, and then I will hopefully check back in. For the weekend, I'm going to go and stay at the house that we're hoping to move to. I don't think I've really talked about it with any clarity in any of my vlogs. A house in town that we will potentially, well, that we're hoping to move into, ready for when my eldest goes to secondary school, because it's closer to the school he'll go to, and it means he can walk himself to school. So we're hoping to move, and before we move, we want to do renovations. I don't want to live in like a building site if I don't have to, and he's 9 at the minute, so he's not going to be going to secondary for 3 more years. So we're hoping that we can like slowly start renovating, but that means that we're going to be spending our weekends at that house. All of this to say that I am really hoping I can finish Temeraire before we go down. So finish this one tonight and tomorrow morning, so that then when we leave, so we go pick up our kids at 2 and then head down, and then I will be taking this one with me. I'm going to prioritize, therefore, Temeraire until we leave, and then hopefully this will provide enough reading material for the time being for the weekend, because obviously the intention is to be busy. We do have our car's MOT, which is on Saturday, so my hope is that over the weekend we're going to be busy. So I don't know how much reading I'll get done, but my hope is that I can at the very least finish this one. Hey vlog, it's Friday, so it's time for me to check in again. I am getting ready to move down to the townhouse. So we're all packed up, so I just need to pack up the foodie bits, but I'll do that last minute. And then yeah, my husband will come home with the shopping, we'll sort all of that out, and then we will go pick up the kids and move down. So I have been organizing, but in between that I have actually managed to accomplish what I set out to, and I have finished the Blood of Tyrants. This is going to be a really odd one for me to rate because part one was arguably really bad. Like, if I wasn't 8 books into this series and like really committed to these characters at this point, I literally would have DNF'd this book. Like, it's 150 pages worth of nothing good. Like, it was just not well written, in my opinion, and it was so obviously a plot device. It was a bit Deus Ex Machina at sometimes, and it just didn't work for me at all. Like, part one was really not good. Part two was good in terms of like character interactions, callbacks to previous books. It's very nostalgic. I imagine for people who have been reading this series over multiple years, part two would be really cool as well, because I found it really cool and I've been reading it over the course of a year. So people who have been like waiting for future installments in this series probably would have had a really good time with part two. And then part three got us back to what we haven't seen since maybe book 4, of just like these epic battles, this really interesting combat style. We have much more of a grasp on the political side, but the civilian side, and seeing the Napoleonic Wars conflict actually unfurl a bit more. The third part is set in Russia, which is exactly why it is what it is. And obviously Napoleonic Wars plus Russia. If you know history, you know where this is going. You know where that last book is going to go. So I am really excited to read the last book and get into it. So part 1 is like a 2-star at best. Part 2 is like a solid like 3.5 stars. And then part 3 is like a high 4-star. So I have no clue how to rate this. I think I'm going to end up needing to give it 3 stars, because I don't think that part 3 fully compensates for how awful I had a time in part 1. I have mixed feelings on this book, and I'm very curious once people in the Discord start catching up to see everyone else's thoughts on this one, because I need to know if it's just like me disliking this trope, or if other things that I'm just not seeing because I'm seeing red with the trope. That being said, that one is done. I have also now read the first 5 short stories in the Anatomy of Fear. The first one being Blood by Trudy Skies. As I said before, I've not read anything by Trudy Skies before. They are someone whose reviews I've read, but I've not read their books. So this is a really interesting foray into their work, and I would definitely consider picking up something else by this author. If you've read anything by them, namely Esme, could you please let me know where I should be starting and what I'm supposed to be reading by this author, because I really liked the writing style. Next I had Ears by Tim Hardy. I am going to be reading Tim Hardy whether I want to or not, because I'm reading it for a vlog project that I'm going to be doing, I think, in early December. So I'm being forced into this one anyway, but I really did like the writing style, so that actually bodes very, very well for my vlog project where I'm going to be reading another one of this author's books. Then we have Bone by Ella McRae. I knew I would love this. I love Ella McRae's writing style, and I love how precise her writing style is now. Like, you can tell it's an Ella McRae book, even though it's very different to her Dragon Spirits books, and they in turn have a very different tone to her Lunaria books. But I really love the Ella McRae-ness of her writing style. You know, when you have those authors that you just really click with, and then their writing style just suits you. Like, that's how I feel about Ella McRae. Ella McRae is a really interesting one, because she started off as someone who sent me a review copy, and it was literally strictly just like reviewer and author kind of relationship. And since then, she has become my friend, and she is someone that I genuinely consider a really great friend here on the Booktonet. So like it's the inverse. It's not that I have a bias towards her books because she's my friend. She became my friend because I liked her books, which is an interesting one. The next one that I read is Hand by Bjorn Larsen. Bjorn Larsen is one that I have very interesting feelings about because I want to read his series, but as far as I'm aware, it's unfinished. And I binge read series, and it's been unfinished for a little while, and I need that series once it's concluded because it looks very interesting to me. I did like Hand. This one is probably the one that felt least like it fit with the rest of the anthology in my mind, and I don't know why. But as a story in its own right, not tying into the anthology, I thought it was a really good story. It just didn't suit the vibe of everything else somehow. And I couldn't tell you why, but thankfully it was a good book anyway, so it doesn't matter. I don't read anthologies for it to all have that continuity, because anthologies are to me just like a taste test of authors, or me just being able to like quickly dip into an author I've previously loved. So I am not fussed either way, but I think maybe for people who do want that continuity, they might not engage with that one as much. I'm not sure. But as a story in its own right, I thought it was really well written. Great writing style, very distinctive, and I enjoyed it. It just, I don't know what it was in my brain that made it not feel like it was part of this anthology. And then the last one that I read, the one I read this morning, is I by Lee Connolly. Lee Connolly is another author that I think I own. At least, I know I own at least one, maybe two books by this author. Have not read any of them. It's really bad. I really need to get on my self-pub ride. I was going to be focusing on that this year and I just haven't. So I really do need to get on that and really start getting into reading more self-pub again, because it's been a while. But yeah, so far a good start. Now, I'm going to point out, I've been chatting in Discord about this book with some people, and it's not been resonating with some, and I think that is an expectations thing. Now, bear in mind that although the cover and almost like the way that it looks like it's marketed, it looks like it's going to be closer to a horror anthology. It's going to be like creepy and dark and atmospheric, and that you're going to be getting like a horror spooky season kind of vibe from it. That's not really what this is. It is just a load of epic fantasy authors writing something that is potentially a tiny bit darker than they'd normally write, and very atmospheric. That's what you're getting from this. But it is an epic fantasy anthology. So for those of you who, when the spooky season comes around, you kind of want to read something that's seasonal, but you're not normally like a horror or gothics kind of vibe, and you don't like spooky either, then this could be, if you're normally a fantasy reader but you just want to jump on the seasonal bandwagon, this could actually be a really good one, because it does have like enough of that like seasonal darkness atmosphere to it, but it is to its core epic fantasy. So a lot of people who have picked it up expecting this to be like horror or like scary or spooky, they're not vibing with it because it's not giving them what they wanted. Thankfully, I picked this up because of the authors, because Ella McRae and Crystal Matar are in here, and then a load of authors, and H.L. Tinsley and Zamil Akhtar are in this. So that's basically why I picked it up. And then there's a load of authors that, as I said, I want to try, so it's a great taste test. That's why I've picked this up, because of the authors. But all of those authors are ones that I have picked up epic fantasy from. Ella McRae, I love the Dragon Spirits series. Crystal Matar, I still need to read. I know. It's coming, I promise. You'll see. It's worth the wait. Legacy of the Brightwash, I need to read. And then H.L. Tinsley, I really liked We Men of Ash and Shadow, but it's kind of like a Dickensian gaslamp dark fantasy. No horror in there. Zamil Akhtar there is a little tiny bit of like eldritch horror going on in some of his works, but it is still very much epic fantasy. So because I knew that going in, I think my expectations were very different to that experience of those who were expecting this to be a horror anthology. So do bear that in mind. That was a very long ramble, but I think setting expectations really, really matters when it comes to picking up books, especially books by self-pub authors. So I thought I would put that out there for anyone who's wanting to pick this up on my recommendation. I hope I'm setting you up for success. And then I have read a teensy bit of Clara la Penumbra. I am now on page 90. The writing, as I said, still very atmospheric, still enjoyable. It's very weird. It's got a very specific tone to it. It has like if you took the Da Vinci Code in a way, but made it pretentious, artsy fartsy, dark academia is the best I can do with this. I wouldn't bother talking about a book that is in Spanish and isn't translated. So this is translated. It's called The Art of Murder, I think. So it is translated. So you could potentially read this. That's why I'm talking about it. If it was just in Spanish, I don't know if I bother putting it in a vlog because it's of no use to you. But it is in English, and it is a fascinating read for anyone who likes really pretentious dark academia, especially if you want it to have like a really borderline speculative but not really atmosphere to it. Then it is actually really well written. Obviously I don't know how good the translation is, but it's a really well written book. But there are certain choices of language that I'm like, okay, we went there, all right then. So like the way he talks about women is very icky, but it almost feels deliberate in a way, because the whole point is like commentary on like the art. It's weird. It's a weird one to judge, because I don't know how much of this is like the author's a sexist shit versus how much of it is like a social reflection on visual commentary that you like your own inner monologue would make on a statue or on like a person. So I don't know. Anyway, so that's where I'm at with this one. I don't have much else to say at the minute. As I said, 90-page mark. So once things start to amp up, I will be able to talk to you about it a little bit more, which will hopefully be tomorrow. As I said, I am really, really hoping to finish this by Sunday. How realistic that is, I don't know, because I think I said this before, but it's 554 pages and I'm on page 90, which means that over the next, this evening and then Saturday and Sunday, I still have like over 400 pages to read. So we'll see how that goes, see how doable that is. But yeah, that's it for this update, which is really long. So I'm going to go get to editing this so that then Monday me doesn't have a horrible time having to edit 3 days worth of vlog. Hey vlog, it's Saturday, so I thought I would check in. I have no tripod, so hence the shaky cam. My tripod is it's not actually holding my phone anymore, like the one job that it has. I'm mildly peeved about that. But I have been reading La de la Penumbra. And because I was getting a bit bored with it, I did also pick up another book. So before I left the house, I did another roll, just in case. And this is what I rolled. Roll number 8. 7. Seance. And I got seance. And seance on here is you need to go on a random letter generator and generate a letter. And I got L. So I decided to pick up Lilith by Nikki Marmary. And I got, I don't know, maybe 60 pages into that, and I DNF'd. So Lilith is the story of Lilith, the biblical figure that damned women. And the whole idea is it's supposed to be tackling women's submissiveness and blah, blah, blah. But from the get-go, the way we keep talking about how pretty Lilith is, like that's really important. And then we also are talking about how Lilith perceives it to be Eve's fault that she's submissive. And I don't know, I'm sure there's room for it to develop and improve, and I'm sure that these things get tackled eventually. It's just not working for me, especially because there is kind of a bit of she stole my manness to the way she talks about Eve. It's like, why do you want this man? If he is the way he's being portrayed in this book, why do you want this man? So for a feminist novel, I have some issues with it, which again could possibly get rectified throughout the rest of the novel, but I was having a horrible time with it. The writing style also was just not vibing with me. And I've just been having one of those months where there are so many books that I'm reading that are like almost good. Like The Way of Kings should have been a 4-star read, but for some reason it just didn't quite reach it. And then Wayward, it was nearly good, but the way a certain perspective was written wasn't good. Then obviously like Hex Appeal and Hex in the City are a bit different because they are kind of exactly what I wanted them to be. They're just never going to be 4 or 5-star reads for me. That's not how they roll. And then this week, everything's been like 3 stars as well. So I'm at a point where I cannot be bothered to try and push myself through to get to another 3-star read. So I went and I looked at reviews, and it seems like I have made the right choice based on a lot of the reviews that I have seen. So I am quite happy with DNFing that. Well, not happy with it because I wanted to love it, but that seems like the sensible choice. And then I have Clara y la Penumbra. Now I am 354 pages into this now. I'm done for the day. And this one is a pain in my ass because conceptually it's very cool. I understand the conversation it's trying to have, the discussions around art, around performing arts especially, around bodily autonomy, around depictions of people and the way we perceive them, etc. So I understand the conversation it's trying to have, and it's fascinating. What I don't fully understand is why it needs so many words to do so. This is a really wordy book. And bearing in mind that Spanish books tend to be pretty wordy anyway, like they just lean that way. There's a lot of emphasis on prose in Spanish literature. Think kind of like almost where English and American literature was at in like the 80s and 90s. Like it's just very wordy. That's where Spanish literature still is. It's still very, very wordy. And even for Spanish literature, this dude is wordy. Like, it's a lot of words. And it's not that it's badly written. It's not like it's too many words. It is very interestingly written. But one of the things is that then there's a lot of emphasis on description, which includes just him repeatedly over and over again describing like naked bodies. And it's always in this, he's trying to sound clinical, but it actually sounds lewd. So there's that. And yeah, so it's very wordy. And then on top of that, the plot is a little bit all over the place. And I also just feel like if you're going to be having a discussion around objectification, you need lots of different body types, different people from different backgrounds, people who perceive objectification differently, but we're just basically getting it from the perspectives of attractive women. And the main male perspective that we've had is a guy who's related to someone who is a model. So it's just not doing what I think it should be doing with a concept like this. I think this would have been better in the hands of someone who has been objectified and who understands. So, not that men don't get objectified at all. I just think that there is a level of privilege that he has that is social armor against the conversation he's trying to have. So, not a bad book, and I'm very fascinated by it, but I'm also not like enamored with it, and I have problems with it the whole time I'm reading it. So it's a very strange reading experience because it's like I definitely want to push through, I definitely want to keep reading, but at the same time I don't really know why I'm still reading. So it's interesting. The prose is definitely fine though, so it's definitely carrying me through, even though it is like dense and a lot on my brain, which is not a weekend read. Probably not the right time to choose to read this, but oh well. So now I'm going to go hopefully finish that up tomorrow, and then we can finish up this vlog because I am not trying to do any more reads at this point. I feel like I'm cursed this month. It's like, oh, you love October. Okay, you are cursed to have nothing higher than a 3-star read. So at this point, I'm not even hunting for a 5-star. I am literally hunting for a 4-star. Please, universe, after this book, in the next vlog, please give me a 4-star read. For the love of God. So quickly checking in to talk about The Anatomy of Fear, which is the only thing keeping me going at the moment. I have read a few more stories in this, and I don't think that I know how to talk about these books in any kind of reasonable way. I've just filmed my wrap up of the week about half an hour ago and realized that I hadn't talked about The Anatomy of Fear. I'm reading them every day. I am going to be finished with this by next week. I don't know how to talk about this book in any kind of way that makes sense because I will be evaluating each story. So I think when I am done, I'll just do another big kind of wrap up of everything I've read, like I did earlier on in this vlog. Just kind of go through and talk about the prose style, how well executed the short story was, etc. Because I just don't think checking in regularly with this one is worth my while. So I will come back to you and talk about this one once I am done. So that'll probably be in next week's vlog. Hey vlog, it's actually Monday, so it's time for me to wrap up the vlog. I thought I would check in yesterday, but I really didn't have a huge amount more to say about Buckley la Penumbra. I just didn't feel like there was anything left to articulate because my emotions and my thoughts remained the same. I finished it. I am glad to have read it, but it's not one that I feel strongly about, and it is one that I think could have done with being a more concise plot or a more well-rounded plot, either or. I think that the plot that we had focused too much on the same thing and didn't expand outwards in any other direction. So then this plot that we had went on too long. So either the book needed to be shorter and have this plot resolved in a more concise way, or we needed to take a step in other directions, in my opinion. But it was a really well written book, arguably a bit wordy, but it was a well-written book. It was a interesting concept, very exciting concept, and I would consider reading more by this author. So it's come out at a really solid 3 stars for me. As I said, there are problems that I have with it, but the good outweighs the bad, which means that we have had yet another 3-star week. Things are not going well for me. So that means that this week we started out with Hex and the City, which I ended up giving 3 stars. It was a really fun time. I really enjoyed it. Then after that, we had Blood of Tyrants, which I also ended up giving 3 stars because the opening to this was a really horrible time and I really wasn't enjoying it. And then the latter half really picked up. So I kind of weighed up the 2 halves against each other and it comes out at a 3 star. Then I DNF'd Lilith by Nikki Marmory, which I haven't rated because it's a DNF. It just really wasn't working for me, and upon reading reviews, it seems like I made the right choice, that the problems that I was having with it would have persisted. And then finally we have Clara y la Penumbra, which I also ended up giving 3 stars. So Bookopoly for me so far is cursed because it's all 3 stars. I don't know what to do about that, to be honest, but here we are. So that's the end of this vlog. Rather abrupt ending again, but just I don't need to keep going on about Clara y la Penumbra because it makes it seem like it's a worse book, that I like the book less than I do, because the things that I have to say are the stuff I have criticisms of. So, and I don't want it to seem like it's a book that I think entirely negatively about. I have had another mediocre week, and let's hope that this is the end of this streak and I can have a better week next week. So I will continue to be vlogging next week. I will continue working my way through the Bookopoly board. So let me know how your Bookopoly is going, and if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully catch you in another one soon.